Alright, we're back with part 1 of using the Unity high definition render pipeline. I'm going to take you from the basics all the way to the end. It's probably going to be divided up a little bit. First things first, we want to implement the high definition render pipeline. So you're going to go to your Unity hub, over here at New, select your version, and select a high definition render pipeline. Make sure you got your location and your name filled out here. I'm just going to call it land test. And hit create. It's going to take a minute to compile all that and import the appropriate packages. Alright, while we wait for that to load in, I wanted to show you where I got these extra programs that I used. I actually saw both of these on a Game from Scratch video. If you haven't checked them out, they're fantastic. This is Bounding Box Software's Materialize, and it's great for generating your different channel maps to get nice realistic materials. You can get it right here. Also used software called Treeit, which is kind of like Speed Tree, but I found a little easier to understand. It's free. You can get it right here. Another thing I used, and this is also really fantastic. It's a Blender plugin. It's called the Blender Building Tool. You can get it right here. And it's pretty fantastic. We'll be going over that as well. Alright, we have our default scene loaded in. Anytime you start a new project with the Unity high definition render pipeline, it's going to pop up with this default scene. So what we're going to do is just go over to File, there we go, Save As, and then we'll just type in a new name for our new scene. I'll just call it New. And now it's separate from that default scene, and we can go in and get this stuff out of here. I'm just going to select that in the hierarchy, hit delete. What does that leave us with? Rendering settings, post-processing, directional light, and a camera. That's all pretty fine. Now, obviously, one package we're going to need is going to be the terrain generation. So we need to go up here to Window, go to Package Manager. Might take a second for these to load in, but you do want to make sure that if you're not seeing any preview packages, you want to click Advanced, and then there'll be an option for including preview packages. I'm going to go down till we see terrain. Alright, terrain tools version 2.0.2. Just hit install. It might take a minute. Alright, that took a good chunk of time to get all sorted out, but it looks like we got it. It'll also give you the option up here, ideally. If it doesn't, you can just search for it in the asset store. It'll give you the option up here to download the extra assets. I don't really want to do it that way. We'll actually go to the asset store and get it then, because it's trying to have me pull up a separate window. So we're going to go Window, Asset Store. I'm going to undock this just so we can see it a little better. And I'm able to click up here and see my previously imported assets. Pop on over to Terrain Tool Sample Assets. This includes, I believe, a few textures. I think there's one for snow, maybe one for sand. Actually select Import. And then it's also got some brushes. The brushes are really where it's at. They make a huge difference on how terrain-like your terrain looks. All the other brushes are either squares or very rounded shapes. And these are specifically designed for doing the terrain stuff. So we got that loaded in. got our blank project other than our camera, our light. I think this is a... Yeah, these are just, I believe, volumes, actually. Yep, they are. Alright, I'm still learning about the high-definition render pipeline, but I got the basics down. So, we're going to go up to Window, down to Terrain. Yep, scrolled right past it. And select Terrain Toolbox. There are a whole bunch of settings to work on here. I'm not sure if I went over them in my last video, but you don't actually have to tweak any of these. You can go back and edit most of them at any time. But, you know, there's a bunch of stuff to mess with there. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it all as default and hit Create. Exit out of that. And that generates us a nice flat plane that we can carve some terrain out of. And when we left click on it, it'll select it, and then we have some options over here. And don't let how well it's laid out and how simple it looks for you. There's a lot you can do with this stuff. First things first, we're going to give the terrain an overall basic texture. So we can select the Paint Terrain, and as you see we have a raise and lower function, so you can actually, the painting is the sculpting as well, so it goes all over the place, but you can select the raise and lower terrain, and then go down to Paint Texture. And we can also go down here to Layers. Or is it Materials? Nope, it's Layers. There we go. And we select Add Layer. And then we have some pre-selected materials here to pick from. I'm just going to go with dirt. We add that in, and that's normally going to paste that. For some reason, so in the past, the first layer you put in, it would put it over the entire thing. I think in this particular version, I'm not sure why, the second layer you put in, it'll do that. So if we select rock, for example, yep, it auto textures everything as rock, which is totally fine because we can go back in with the dirt and paint in some other details and get some of that no problem. Alright, we've already got paint texture selected, and these right here are the preview brushes, and they are fantastic, so you can just kind of go right in there. Created ourselves a little dirt patch. And then you can even go back through and blend the rock back in if you want. Just to give some variance. And add as many textures as you want. Alright, so we painted ourselves a little kind of terrain there, and we can go up to raise and lower terrain, and using these same textures create some really awesome stuff. So I'm going to increase the brush size a bit and just kind of start clicking around and going at it. That's a little much. Alright, it looks like we got a little bit of variance all around. This kind of mountain here looks sort of like a key feature, so let's put a little bit more detail into it. Doesn't look too bad. We can smooth things out a little bit by going down to erosion, and we'll go with hydraulic erosion. Smooth some of these areas out a bit. Oh. Alright, that's not too bad. That's not the important part anyway. I imagine you guys are here for the volumetric lighting, so. Got us a little terrain knocked out. Let's reposition our camera. Gonna select it over here, and then just hit F to focus on it. Okay, there it is. I'm gonna hit this up here. I'm just going to hit E and then drag here to rotate it around. And we'll move it into a better spot. That'll do for the moment. Not sure why we're getting that weird flicker in the preview. Oh, whatever, it's not causing any problems. Alright, let's finish getting our little environment set up, and then we can worry about going back through and adding models and props and fancying it up a little bit. So we got our basic terrain here. Something that's going to help out a lot is getting our sky and atmospherics in there. So what we're going to do is change our... go down here to the rendering settings, and we see we have volumetric fog here set up, already enabled, which is pretty nice. And we can just tweak these settings a little bit. Also adjust our light so we can see what's going on a little better. Of course, we're going to want sort of a kind of sunset coming on look, or at least to get some of the volumetric lighting with our mountain here. So we're going to angle the sun appropriately. There we go. That's doing pretty good. Alright, we're already getting much better results on the lighting there. Let's see. Come back here and select the render settings, and if we actually change... So we have the procedural sky is controlling the lighting right now. What we can do is go in and add our own sky. Oh, not there. I'm going to hit add override right here, and then just select sky, HDRI sky. I'm going to hit all, and we actually need a cube map to put in here. Now there's a bunch of different ways. There are assets in the asset store. You can make them yourselves. You can go out and take a picture of the sky and do a little bit of trickery and get it working. I actually already have a texture set up just not exactly sure where I put it. Let me see if I can grab that real quick. There we go. Drag that in. And if we actually select cube right there, and then just click away from it and hit apply, it should just compile it into a cube map for us. Yep, instantaneously. That's pretty nice. Go back to render settings and pop down here to our HDR sky tab. HDRI sky, yeah. Drag it on in there. And the reason it's not showing up yet is because we still have our procedural sky active. So we just need to come up to procedural sky and uncheck that. And then we need to change our light settings. So that's going to be right here. It's basing the intensity off of the exposure. You need to change it to lux. And change this to HDR sky. And then I think in our camera settings it is. Here it is in the visual environment settings. Sorry, a lot of new settings. Still learning a lot of stuff here. Hop on down to HDRI sky. Click that. You can change the ambient mode if you want. And that should give us, yeah, it is giving us our new sky. It's just that the lighting settings are kind of overpowering the scene a little bit. And we can fix that. I think we can just knock this number down, and that will do it actually. So let's change this to 1,000. Yep, that's looking a little better. Alright, we'll do 7,000. 5,000 for now. There we go, that's looking a little better. It might be within our environmental fog settings as well. You can see we are starting to get those volumetric shadows right there. Can actually change this up just a little bit. Give it a little bit of a warmer tone. Alright, that's not looking too bad. We've got our terrain, we've got our lighting pretty set up. We've got our environmental setups. Let's see here. Light's looking pretty good. Oh, one thing we can do, we'll see as we're moving towards and backing away from the terrain, you'll get sort of a clipping effect on the shadows. You can fix that over here just by raising this number up. I'm going to throw it way up just to keep that consistent quality going. You see we're not getting that pop in now. Alright guys, that's going to be the end of part 1 on this one. We got a basic environment, we got our sky, we got our terrain, we got our lighting. Next up is going to be building models, bringing them in. We're going to be using some new applications. So, if this helped at all, like, share, subscribe. I really appreciate you guys coming. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know. Thanks guys, take it easy.